The endgame opens by showing a young girl being trained by her father in Belarus 6 months after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The girl fired an RPG at the target car. In New York City, FBI special forces are escorting an important package. The package was not gold or diamonds, but a beautiful woman wearing a blue dress. This woman's name is Elena Fedorova. In front of her at this time were the American Attorney General Reed Doblin, FBI Director Rogelio, and Minister of the Interior Joan Bradbury. Elena is no ordinary woman. She was brought to this secret base because of 105 federal criminal charges against her. As it turns out, Elena leads a crime organization called Skaska, which is involved in illegal weapon smuggling and various other crimes. The scene switches to bank target number 1, where professional robbers act fully armed. One of the perpetrators shows a message written on paper. The head of the FBI team, Jonathan, reports this armed robbery to the director with a message from the perpetrator that reads, "Director Rogelio Real must bow to the Queen." Rogelio asks if Elena organized the bank robbery and who the Queen is. Elena threatens to take them down one by one. Returning to the past, this young girl finds traces of her target, who managed to escape from the car she shot. FBI agent Val Turner visits her husband, Owen, who is imprisoned. Val is shocked that Owen files for divorce. Owen is a former FBI agent who was proven to have taken money from drug cases, so he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Even though their life is not as beautiful as before, Val refuses to divorce. After receiving a bank robbery report, this FBI agent immediately went to the crime scene. Her partner, Antoni, had already arrived there. Val was surprised because 6 armed robbers acted on Wednesday, even though Friday was scheduled to send money to the bank. Val estimates that this bank only has around $300,000 in stock. Not long after, Jonathan, head of the FBI unit, arrived. He looked annoyed and told them to work in the office. The Attorney General believes this bank robbery was Elena's plan to get free by exchanging prisoners. The scene moves to the second bank. Rana was inside this bank while her partner, Louis, was at the first bank and contacted her to count down. Suddenly, a gang of armed robbers entered the second bank and launched their action. All CCTV cameras in this bank were destroyed. The bank manager, hiding under the cupboard, was immediately given a warning shot by Rona. Initially, Val wanted to return to headquarters, but Val and her colleagues decided to come to the second bank location after receiving a report of the same robbery. Especially for this second bank, Val knew very well that a cartel boss named Solomon had deposited $70 million of his money. She led this case until Solomon was thrown into a particular prison. At that moment, Val contacts Solomon in the luxury prison because she knows no one would dare touch this bank without his permission. This is where Val realized that only one person could commit an open crime like this. Val confirms directly to her superiors whether this bank robbery has anything to do with Elena, an international criminal with a private army nicknamed the Snow White of Russia. Not only that, Elena also handled Solomon's money laundering until Elena almost killed Val. Because she was sure that Elena was not a random criminal who could target more than 2 banks, this FBI agent requested that the 91 Prevent Defense procedure be activated to secure more than 700 banks in New York City. Jonathan disagrees and thinks Val's suggestion is crazy and excessive. Val's guess was proven correct when they came to the third bank. Afterward, there was a big explosion inside the bank. In an instant, this bank was controlled by Elena's subordinates. Louis was seen destroying a bank safe, while Rana collected the cell phones of employees and customers trapped inside. So far, 5 banks have been recorded as being controlled by this international criminal organization. Finally, Val was allowed to come to headquarters with files about Elena's crimes that she previously handled. Val learns that Elena's husband, Sergei, died 18 months ago. 5 years earlier, Val served in Gambia to carry out interrogations after an attempted coup by a warlord named Kalo, who surrounded a fishing village. Suddenly, Elena came with 5 of her members to liberate the town within an hour, simply by bringing 2 cartons of drugs for Kalo. Even though Elena had a private army, Val wondered why Elena could be captured so quickly. They argued that Elena's arrest was based on a report from a servant named Nichati. When she met Val, Elena looked very relaxed. It seemed like Elena had planned everything so she could meet Val. Here, Val urges Elena to reveal her real plan regarding the burglary of these 5 banks. Elena doesn't want to open her mouth, but she finds out that Val is being sued for divorce by her husband. This shocked Val, who asked how Elena knew about her problems. Elena is seen holding a tattoo that symbolizes her genuine love for Sergei. Back in the past, the girl stabbed her target, who was a girl who was still her age. It turns out that Elena was not the perpetrator of the stabbing, but the girl who was the victim of the child and father's sadism. Here, it is shown that there is a stab wound on Elena's stomach. Suddenly, Elena asked to meet her lawyer, James. Elsewhere, a bank officer named Menzer was arrested after being caught helping Elena. According to Val, Elena could not have targeted the 5 small banks, but rather a central bank called the Federal Reserve, which holds 6,000 tons of gold reserves. However, the Attorney General and the Minister of Home Affairs did not believe Val's allegations. Meanwhile, armed with information from a bank manager named Lawton, who had another cell phone, the Special Forces team began to act through the ventilation line. However, it turned out that many mines had been installed in that room. Rona already knew about Lawton's secret actions. When they arrived at the Federal Reserve Bank, Val didn't see a SWAT team securing this largest bank. Suddenly, Val saw the waiter disguised as a driver. Val managed to finish him off first. Not long after, the SWAT team arrived and arrested a woman. However, it turns out the real SWAT team was stuck in traffic. The woman taken by the robbery gang was Amira, an Arab industrial figure and Federal Reserve Board member who had biometrics to open safes. Not long after, Val got a call from her husband's lawyer, James. It turns out the lawyer is Elena's lawyer, and at this time, he meets Val as Elena's lawyer, not her husband's. James explained that Elena herself had deliberately offered to free Owen from prison, because Elena was the one who framed Owen. Val threatens to arrest James, but the sniper has already targeted her. At the same time, Louis blows up the safe room to gain access to the bank. Elena laughed because, so far, her plan had worked. One of the Attorney General's safe deposit boxes contained crypto keys, evidence of tax evasion, and a zip drive with classified information about Snow White and the 7 banks. They almost got it. Back in the past, at that time, the girl who was stabbed put up a fight. She attacked the father and daughter back. Returning to the future, it turns out that Sergei is still alive and in prison with Owen. Sergei smiled because soon he would be free. After that, the film continues to episode 2. Here, the story of Elena and Sergei's past begins to unfold. At that time, a man whose face was not shown placed active explosives inside the church. In the present, Elena remains silent, even though Val has insisted on questioning Elena's purpose in trapping her husband. Returning to the location of bank target number 2, Jonathan assigned Antoni to investigate the identity of the female criminal who was suspected to be the leader of the robbers at this bank. The head of this FBI unit plans to take back these banks individually. In fact, until the 3rd day, the joint authorities had not received information about what Elena's gang was doing in the Federal Reserve Bank, where 6,000 tons of gold were stored. Elena's actions didn't stop there. A child became the next target. This child was kidnapped by an armed gang while walking in the city center. The child's body was rigged with explosives and then displayed in front of the camera. It turned out that the victim was Minister Jones' son. Back in the past, that day was Elena and Sergei's wedding day. Sergei's mother was seen waiting for their presents in front of the church. This older woman seemed happy to call Elena her new queen. However, when Sergei's mother entered the church, suddenly there was a terrible explosion that destroyed the church. In the present, Minister Joan is furious because Elena dares to kidnap her child. Joan threatened that if anything happened to her child, she would hang Elena herself. Joe felt uncomfortable with the dress Elena was wearing, so he asked Elena to change her clothes into an orange prison uniform. Val asks Antoni to check the tunnel's CCTV to see if any box trucks are passing by. The FBI agent's goals are unclear, but Val's actions suggest she is getting closer to uncovering Elena's big plan. Meanwhile, Rana copied a file onto a flash disk when Lawton, a bank officer, asked her for food. Rana gave him candy while getting angry. When the FBI managed to stop a suspicious box truck, they found a car inside it. But what caught Val's attention was the location of her mother's grave, which was not far from there. At the same time, Val found Minister Jones' child in front of his mother's body. In the past, Sergei was determined to take revenge on the perpetrator who killed his mother. The FBI team is trying to deactivate the explosive installed on Minister Jones' child, and they need a password to deactivate the explosive. Val recalls what Elena told her about the story of the mother and son, including the name Isaac Bigby. Finally, the strap was removed, and the explosive was thrown to a safe location. Back at bank number 2, Lawton felt pain in his chest. His head was throbbing painfully, and cold sweat was pouring down his face. Meanwhile, Minister Joan thanks Val for saving her son's life. Here, Val becomes increasingly curious about the puzzle that Elena has made because Elena knows a lot about her life. Val suspects that Elena has bugged his car, which is why she knows his whole life story. She believes someone is sending information to Elena from behind the FBI walls, and Tony promised to check the car to confirm his suspicions. Val returned to see Elena talking aimlessly until Val realized what she meant was about a sick hostage. At the same time, Jonathan asked the bank robber to hand over Lawton, who was sick. When Antony checked Val's car, he found a box of clothes. When Lawton was handed over, Jonathan asked Rona. He just wanted to record this female robber's voice to investigate her identity. Police officers found a listening device under Lawton's shoe. Before the officer ran away, Val was aware of the action. It is not yet known why the female police officer wanted to work with Elena. Val immediately returned to the FBI headquarters and showed the video recording in front of Minister Joan. It turns out that the recording shows the Veracruz cartel boss, Rios, meeting with Joan, who asks for $10 million into her account every year. If Rios refused, Joan threatened to order an ambush. Without mercy, Joan was immediately handcuffed. It seems that Elena has hatched this plan to overthrow Joan's minister, who is proven to be corrupt. After checking, Antony found a photo in the clothing box. Val brought the photo to Elena. Her husband, Owen, Sergei, and Elena were seen sitting together. Val wanted to know when this photo was taken, but Elena wouldn't answer then, promising to tell another, more exciting story the next day. Elena and Sergei got the same tattoo in the past because their wedding had to be canceled due to the explosion incident. Back at the prison, Owen doesn't want to give Val an answer about why he's sitting at the same table as Elena and Sergei. Before leaving, Owen just gave Val a flower. Owen and Sergei had made a deal in prison, but the deal was still a mystery. It is revealed that Sergei used a cell phone in prison to send messages to Elena using Morse code. The film continues into episode 3. A senior reporter named Tyler from N-News reported the attack on 7 banks in New York City by armed groups. To this day, the perpetrators have not filed any charges, and everything remains a mystery. Antony is still having difficulty investigating the photo, and he suspects that the picture was taken around 2015 because the dress Elena was wearing at that time was sold worldwide. Val begins to remember Owen's hairstyle when her husband was shot in Argentina while disguised as a weapons buyer, but the mission failed. The scene briefly cuts back to when Owen admits to Sergei and Elena that he is the weapons buyer. Not long after, Elena sees a bald man with suspicious movements enter the restaurant. Val returns to meet Elena to find out what happened in Argentina, but again, this clever criminal creates a puzzle that drains Val's brain performance. Elena just said, "There's smoke, there's fire." Then Elena tells about 2 friends who killed each other. At the same time, a hostage at the 5th bank was thrown into an airtight safe. The criminals set the timer for 4 hours. That means the victim will be in the room until he suffocates from suffocation. Jonathan suggested to the director to use argon gas to paralyze the criminals, but Val disagreed because a similar case had been used and resulted in 7 people dying. Suddenly, Elena releases a video that is shown throughout New York City, and she promises to release the hostages in the safe as long as the FBI presents reporter Tyler. Tyler finally agreed to enter bank number 5 and admitted that he didn't know Elena. This reporter left his calm with Val before entering the building. The criminals put Tyler in front of a live camera, asking Tyler to tell him about the geese. Tyler was shocked because he didn't understand what they meant, nor did the FBI team, who had only thought of the song Cut the Duck Goose. An impatient Jonathan prepares a gas attack. Suddenly, Val saw a cloud of smoke, and she remembered Elena's words, "There's smoke, there's fire." Returning to prison, Sergei sees a new inmate known as Hork, a street thug from a secret place. Since Sergei's true identity is kept secret, he worries that Hork will be a problem for him. Meanwhile, Val smells a body from inside the adjacent garage with a cloud of smoke. Val's suspicions were correct, and she found a woman's body in the garage. This clue comes from Elena, which leads her to uncover the motive for the murder of a victim connected to Tyler. While in Argentina, Elena saw 2 suspicious people watching their meeting, and suddenly a shootout broke out. Even though he managed to finish them off, Owen was hit by gunfire. In the present, Val discovers the identity of the woman's body, and she is Ming, a reporter who was previously reported to have jumped from a bridge. However, Ming's relationship with Tyler is still unclear. In 2016, after Owen regained consciousness and after his gunshot wound was treated by Elena and Sergei, his identity as an FBI agent was revealed. Elena offers Owen friendship, and they discuss a small crime family in Ukraine nicknamed the Beloks. While Sergei was playing basketball in prison, he was approached by Hork, who recognized him. However, Sergei pretended not to know the man and introduced himself as Collins to cover his true identity. At bank number 5, all the hostages, including Tyler, are blindfolded. The FBI director is angry with Elena. He is worried that the hostage will be executed. If that happened, the director threatened to kill Elena's subordinates too. But Elena threatened back that if her men died because of the poison gas, the FBI would suffer the consequences. Jonathan reported to the director that his team had prepared the gas needed. He was just waiting for instructions. Towards the last 7 minutes, before the hostages in the cave ran out of breath, there was an explosion in the electrical transformer. At that time, the FBI team broke into the bank to free the hostages, but did not find any criminals. The female victim who was held captive in the safe is confirmed to be safe. At the same time, the criminals threw money into the air to distract the authorities. When confirmed about Ming's body, Tyler admitted that he didn't know this girl. Val then asked the victim, Arusi, who admitted that she had come to the bank because she had been called by the bank even though she had never applied for a loan. When shown a photo of Ming's body, Arusi said she was Ming's close friend. Before disappearing, Ming gave her a strange message with the number 1164. Val remembered the bank safe box with that number and found documents resulting from Ming's investigation into Tyler, who received $10 million from the Beloks criminal group 10 years ago. The suspicion from this investigation is that Tyler killed Ming to cover up his crime. In the end, Tyler couldn't avoid it after being pressured and proven to have killed Ming to cover up his crime. Val realizes that Elena played a significant role in exposing these people's crimes. When asked about the Beloks, Elena reveals they were the ones who shot Owen in Argentina. However, Val still refuses to be friends with Elena. Returning home, Val saw the flowers Owen had given her, and it turned out the brooch was the same as the logo on one of Owen's books. In the book, a flash disk was found. Val wondered what was on the flash disk. At bank number 1, a gang of criminals is digging a tunnel. Meanwhile, the flash disk in the book contains recordings of gunfire and Val's voice while on duty in Gambia to rescue hostages from criminals there. Val shows the tape to Elena. Val believes that Elena deliberately created a puzzle with her past story, especially the story of the bullet that Elena shot at Val. At that time, Val was still part of a special force to free hostages held by an armed criminal group. Coincidentally, Elena and her subordinate, Louis, were scouting the base. The FBI team heard about Elena's tunneling activities at bank number 1. Therefore, Jonathan asked his men to keep an eye on the route that was allegedly the escape route for the bank robbers. But in the end, Louis and his men had moved before the Special Forces team entered the bank, so the FBI failed to catch the escaped perpetrators. Anthony showed Val some of the diamonds that had fallen out when the perpetrators took them. Jonathan and 2 Special Forces team members were suddenly caught in a trap surrounded by a dangerous infrared beam capable of cutting through human flesh. Director Rogelio is furious with Elena, threatening to make her pay if anything terrible happens to his men. Elena wasn't scared at all but threatened back. The FBI team is having trouble turning off the laser beam unless the perpetrators turn it off. Antoni sees the bank owner, but they focus on investigating the diamonds the perpetrators took away. Director Rogelio also requested an investigation into how Elena communicated with the outside world, to make sure there are no more surprises from this clever criminal. Inside the prison, Horik was again looking for trouble with Sergei. After being challenged, he went to his house. According to Sergei, Horik was a threat that had to be eliminated to not interfere with their mission. Owen asked Sergei to be patient, as all their plans would be completed in 6 days. In the news broadcast, Elena, who was previously called a criminal, is now praised by many for successfully uncovering the crimes of the big guys. Meanwhile, Jonathan is shocked as the deadly laser beam begins to move, worsening their already trapped situation with no way out. Mostaskas is called in to help but needs to learn how to turn off the laser weapon. Jonathan's only hope was now in Val's hands. Jonathan was apprehensive about being Elena's next target. Currently, Val is freeing the hostages when someone almost shoots her. Another FBI agent ambushes Louis, who is holding a grenade. Even the sniper is ready to target Louis if he acts carelessly. They are worried that Elena will kill Jonathan, and the director orders to eliminate Louis. However, Elena reads the director's lips and asks them to surrender and stop. In the end, Jonathan is saved. Suddenly, the system code to open the safe appears on the wall, but the bank owner claims he doesn't know the code because the safe suddenly appeared. Val is surprised that Louis claims they met in Gambia, but Louis remains tight-lipped about their plans. This confuses Val, and she starts listening to the tape again. Meanwhile, in prison, Sergei traps Horik by putting poison in his drink. The man immediately falls unconscious. Inside the safe, files on the Gambia were found. The bank owner was severely questioned because a crypto wallet was seen as a result of the crime, and some other evidence linking him to the separatist group led by Kahlo. Eventually, the bank owner was arrested by the FBI to account for his actions. Jonathan confessed to his superiors about the mistakes he had made in the past, which he had been covering up. As a result, his position was demoted, and he must now take orders from Val. As it turns out, the people targeted in the photo are all related to their past. In the past, Elena opened fire on Val not to kill her but to protect her because the enemy almost caught them. Thanks to Louis' cell phone thrown into the sea, Val learned that Elena and her team used the flashing lights at the FBI headquarters as a communication bridge. In 2018, Elena and Sergei managed to catch the bomber in the church. The perpetrator claimed to have been paid by a group that needed money for his wife's medical expenses. After some prodding, the perpetrator whispered the identity of those who paid him to Elena, and then Sergei finished him off. The attack claimed 108 lives, from older people to women to children. Elena is adamant that she will not let go of the few banks currently in her control until her goal is achieved. The scene moves to the Federal Reserve Bank, target bank number 6. A gang of armed robbers takes Amira and another hostage. The president's chief of staff disagrees with the FBI's proposal to move its 6,000 tons of gold elsewhere, as it would reflect that America cannot protect its assets, which could weaken the dollar's value. They discussed the following targets in the photo: Judge Caroline Walls and Ahmed Abdul, a former staff assistant who ran a digital-based security company. Back at the Federal Bank, Snow White's masked gang criminals have been preparing explosives to launch Elena's master plan. The FBI has tracked down a message Elena received, which turns out to be from Peekskill Prison, where Owen is incarcerated. The FBI learns that Sergei is actually inside the prison. Val comes to Abdul's house, hoping that he will help with the Federal Bank break-in case that Elena and her henchmen are conducting. As a digital security engineer, Abdul points out that the alarm system in his house is controlled directly from his cell phone. As the former head of it who built the security system at Federal Bank, Val hopes Abdul will help the FBI prevent Alina. Suddenly, from Abdul's cell phone, they see 3 armed men wearing snow-white masks coming to the house. Abdul hides while Val prepares to confront them. Val uses Abdul's smartphone to distract the enemy. One enemy was taken down, while the second fought back, overwhelming the FBI agent. Fortunately, Val managed to finish the man off. When informed that his men were being pushed back, Virgilio asked Elena to pull them back for Val's safety. However, it was not Elena who sent the armed gang. Finally, the third perpetrator was captured alive for interrogation to find out the origins of their group. The FBI director assigned Anthony to go to Peekskill Prison to meet Owen. However, this mission was kept from anyone, including Jonathan and Val. Jonathan was upset that his position as deputy director of the FBI was not respected. Meanwhile, to get into the vault room where 6,000 tons of gold is stored, Amira and a hostage named McPherson have to stick their palms, as the fingerprints of the third bank board member are required. The robbers had already prepared special gloves with these fingerprints. Abdul and the FBI team began devising a plan to infiltrate the Federal Bank's server room. After the first access was compromised, the robbers forced the bank's board members to open the second access, which used voice sensors. Again, the criminals had prepared a voice recorder that they got from another bank board member. Only the last safe door had to be broken into to get the gold. Meanwhile, as Abdul's guidance, Jonathan and the team were already on site. The scene flashes back again. In 2018, Elena and Sergei targeted Abdul. Sergei was delighted that Elena suddenly tested positive for pregnancy, but for some reason, Elena showed no happy. When they arrived at the prison, Anthony reminded Owen that his wife was involved in the shootout due to Elena's big scenario. And Tony believed that Owen was also engaged, despite denying it. And Tony again warned Owen that Val could become a victim if he did not divulge crucial information. And Tony promised to help Owen if he divulged some information about them. However, Owen kept his mouth shut. Amira brought her eyes closer to the sensor booth per the criminal's orders, while Jonathan and the team managed to get into the server room. Abdul asks for a few minutes to hack into the bank's security system. Meanwhile, Val is interrogating the perpetrator, Ivan, who tried to kill Abdul. As it turns out, Ivan is not Alina's man. The snow-white mask he used was obtained from the black market. When pressed about Balax's group, Ivan just smiled. On the other hand, Val realized that Abdul, who had previously been Alina's target, had been set up long ago to become her loyal member. With his sophisticated cell phone, Abdul managed to open the safe door. In addition to explosives, the criminals also brought propane cylinders to vaporize 6,000 tons of gold. Elena's goal was not to rob the gold, but to take revenge. The FBI team captured the perpetrators while activating the explosives. With less than a minute to go, Val and Jonathan managed to pull the detonator fuse and prevent the destruction of the gold. After being informed of the threat against his wife, Owen threatened to kill Elena and Sergei if anything happened to Val. During the interrogation, Abdul admits to being recruited by Elena, just like Owen. Val was surprised to learn that her husband had been intimidated as well. Abdul was initially targeted because he arranged the payment to the perpetrators who placed the explosives in the church, which resulted in Sergei's mother and 107 other people becoming victims. Abdul didn't know because they said the money was to help Belarus fight Russian aggression. They were Balax's criminal gang, Elena's enemies. Val still doesn't understand why Owen would want to be Elena's subordinate. Meanwhile, Jonathan feels big-headed because his mission to secure the gold at the Federal Bank has succeeded, even though all of Elena's members have replaced the gold with fake gold equipped with explosives. Val vents her anger at Elena without realizing that in her pocket is the address of Isaac Bigby, the perpetrator who killed her mother and is still alive. Although Val doesn't believe Isaac is alive, she can't deny the influence he has on her mind, with memories of when her mother was killed. Later that night, Antoni checks the address Elena gave him. The man renting the house is found to be Lawrence, not Isaac, although he may have changed his identity. Now it's Rogelio's turn to see Judge Caroline because he's on Elena's hit list. As a friend and FBI director, he asks Caroline to move to a safer place, but Caroline refuses. She considers the hundreds of threats she has received to be expected. In a different location, a prisoner managed to escape from prison. Caroline convinces herself that there is no connection between this escape and the military operation carried out using destructive drones. Two FBI agents watching Judge Caroline's house are suddenly paralyzed with drug bullets by members of Snow White's gang. Caroline is kidnapped, and one of the perpetrators turns out to be the inmate who escaped earlier. A message that addressed Agent Val is left behind. In the morning, Caroline's house was filled with authorities. Rogelio is visibly upset as he believes this is Elena's doing. Antoni has identified the perpetrator as Jamie Alfonso, a prisoner Caroline sentenced after killing a thug named Carlos. Jonathan reported a withdrawal activity by one of Elena's subordinates before they escaped. Therefore, he sought the director's approval to deploy a sniper. It turned out that Rana was using bank funds to buy crypto. In a different place, from a sweeper man, Val again gets a message that reads, "Follow the corruption," a puzzle that the FBI must solve. Jonathan contacts Rona to offer a prisoner swap between her boyfriend Louis and the bank employees being held hostage. A record of $10 million has been transferred to crypto. The code is written on a brochure. Val and Antoni get their next clue. A message that reads, "If the judge lies, then he will die." On the eve of the exchange, Jonathan gives Louis the ring that fell in the bank as a gift for his girlfriend. As planned, snipers have been positioned to target Rona. For every one hostage taken out, Louis was allowed to walk one step. However, the sniper failed to aim at Rona, even though all the hostages were eventually rescued. Rona, Louis, and their colleagues escaped the FBI team's pursuit because they had prepared a tunnel. Sergei is in trouble again as Horik, who was previously given poison, has returned to prison. Owen saw him talking to an inmate, not knowing what they were planning. When they arrive at the scene of Alfonso's murder, Val and Antoni manage to find Caroline being held captive. Alfonso felt framed by this judge for a murder he never committed. Caroline admits her guilt because Alfonso is innocent, but the man still jumped out of the window from a very high floor. But they managed to survive because they fell on the balcony downstairs from the room, but Alfonso managed to escape. Rogelio decided to arrest Caroline after she confessed to her crime. When Louis and Ronan tried to escape by bus, they were arrested again by the FBI because a tracking device hid the ring. Suddenly, Alfonso enters the bus and takes the brochure with the crypto code. Val returns to the location given by Elena because she believes the man is Isaac. However, Val doesn't arrest him as her mother ordered. Suddenly, the man collapsed from a drug overdose. Then Val went back to see Elena, but suddenly, the entire power grid at the secret base went out completely. Was this Elena's doing? A man watches the secret federal prison where Val returns to see Elena. This man turned off the electricity in this prison with his tool. To guard against intruders, Rogelio took the weapon to the locker. On the other hand, all inmates at Peekskill Prison were evacuated after the fire alarm went off. One of the federal security officers was paralyzed by the perpetrator after making his way into the building. As per procedure, Val handcuffed Elena's hands, even though she claimed nothing to do with this power outage. The big question arises: which party would dare to enter a federal base on American soil? If you look back at the photo, it turns out that there is one man whom Judge Caroline blocked. This man is known as a former CIA agent named Ghost. Since this Ghost is known to be very dangerous, they must prepare themselves to face him. Louis and Rona were also being held, so Rogelio locked their cells. Allegations are strong that this former CIA agent was targeting Elena for elimination. In 2018, in Rio de Janeiro, Elena, who had a baby at the time, met a woman named Natalia. Elena needed help caring for her fussy baby because her psychological state was unstable, and she felt she was living in a prison-like state. In the present day, after successfully opening the cell, Louis confronted Ghost until a sharp object injured his stomach. Rona immediately helped her boyfriend after getting out of the cell. Sergei felt something odd about this fire incident, had Horik and his team planned all of this. Meanwhile, as a former Marine, Rogelio attempts to stop Louis' bleeding elsewhere. The FBI director tells Val to go to the basement to get ancient weaponry to deal with the ghost threat. Antoni, who is in the field, needs help contacting his colleagues, so he feels something needs to be fixed. Meanwhile, Jonathan ignores Antoni's calls because he is busy approaching the president's single chief of staff, especially after she praises him for leading the operation well in the field. Upon arriving at the base, Antoni finds a ventilation shaft he can use to enter. He also sees some ancient weapons. Looking at the map of the base, he realizes that it has been built since the Cold War. He suspects that there is a secret route that the ghost used to enter the place. Back in the past, Elena and Natalia's relationship was getting closer. Because Elena considered her as sister, Elena gave Natalia a ring left by her mother. Suddenly, Sergei contacted Elena to tell her that Natalia's name was not in the system. Does that mean Natalia is Elena's enemy who pretended to be nice to her? Val suspected that the ghost would emerge from the ventilation duct above them. Therefore, the landmine they found was set just below the vent. The fights between the inmates overwhelmed the guards. After the mine was set, they left, but Antoni emerged, standing right on it. That time, after Sergei came home from work, they pretended to get acquainted, but under the table, they pointed pistols at each other. Natalia threatened them by saying that her men were ready to attack them from outside if they dared resist. When Elena asked who sent Natalia and from which group, the woman replied that she was the boss. After that, Natalia left their house. In prison, Horik attempted to stab Sergei, but was prevented by Owen from doing so until Horik's head hit the corner of a table, and blood poured from his head. At this time, Tim manages to free Antoni from the mine, and Louis' condition worsens, so he is immediately taken to the medical room. Suddenly, the ghost appears from above. Elena and Val take cover behind a table, but it turns out that the expired landmine hasn't exploded yet. A fight ensues, and finally, the two superwomen manage to immobilize Ghost with their excellent cooperation. After the power was restored, Louis was rescued. FBI troops came to the base, and the situation was safe again. Jonathan, who arrived late, got a scolding from the director. As it turns out, Natalia is Mrs. Balaks, the boss of a Ukrainian crime family with whom Elena is enemies. The next scene shows a vlogger who reveals the facts of Elena's robbery case. Several government officials have been arrested in various cases that Elena uncovered, even though the FBI called her a criminal. The vlogger calls on Americans to urge the FBI to release Elena. Jonathan goes back to see Julia, who promises him a promotion. Meanwhile, Rogelio has staked out a farm where Elena's daughter lives. The FBI will use Elena's daughter as bait to threaten Elena. However, Val thinks the capture of the 5-year-old is a form of desperation from Rogelio. The president's chief of staff suddenly fell unconscious, as did his bodyguard, followed by Jonathan. Two perpetrators wearing masks entered the room and immediately kidnapped Julia. At that time, Elena's daughter, Sofia, was about 4 years old. In the basement, they took hostages of Balaks members who were forced to open their mouths to tell about gold. After being kidnapped, Julia was placed in a small room. The American president contacted the FBI team directly, who received a video of Julia's current condition. This is where Val just realized that Julia was the next target. A liquid that looks like gold begins to fill the room where Julia is kept. Julia began to realize this was Elena's game. Next, she was urged to free Julia. Meanwhile, in the gold safe, there are 4 hours left. Sergei asked his lawyer for help in getting Owen out of solitary confinement. The perpetrator used argon gas to anesthetize Julia. Jonathan is again scolded for meeting Julia without orders and is forced to take leave by his superiors. Val's investigation focuses on the car that delivered flowers to Julia. They find remnants of soil from the perpetrator's shoes in the car. Antoni is immediately assigned to investigate the source of the soil. Meanwhile, a wave of protests occurs at the federal base. It turns out that they are residents who want Elena to be released. Residents know this location because of the vlogger's actions. In the past, the Balaks members who were held captive managed to escape and almost captured Elena's daughter, Sofia. Fortunately, Elena managed to kill him before the man touched her child. After this incident, Sofia was placed in a safe location at Elena's brother's house. Meanwhile, a vlogger who often discusses conspiracy theories is interrogated by Val and Jonathan. The vlogger claims that Julia is cloned, which the team doesn't take seriously. However, Val is intrigued after hearing that the vlogger mentions a clay company that matches the rest of the soil found by Antoni in the perpetrator's car. As there is only one clay factory in the area, Val and Jonathan head there immediately. Julia's life is increasingly threatened because the gold liquid has exceeded her head. When they arrive at the factory, the two FBI agents find Julia and rescue her immediately. Owen is finally out of solitary confinement. Val is surprised that the clay mine is registered under Julia's name. However, Val can only get the bigger picture of some of this because Julia isn't in the image. Val just realized that Elena's last target was the person who photographed her, not Julia, because Julia was not in that place. As it turns out, the American president is Elena's real target. Sergei is surprised his lawyer did not release Owen from solitary confinement elsewhere. Meanwhile, as they question Julia further, it is revealed that the American president gave the money to buy the mining company to build a clean water research facility for people experiencing poverty. Suddenly, gas escapes from the gold vault after a small explosion occurs. Hearing the fire alarm, the FBI team entered the vault and found that the 6,000 tons of gold had been destroyed because it was made of clay. Where was the real gold? Was the American president involved, or was Elena the culprit? At that time, Elena said, "The bastard has hidden 6,000 tons of gold somewhere in New York, and he must pay the price." The FBI failed to cover the loss of the world's gold supply after someone gave the vlogger a cell phone containing footage inside the vault. Val urged Elena to tell her where the gold was. Since Elena wouldn't answer, Val threatened that the FBI was hunting Elena's daughter. Eventually, Americans learned that the $500 billion worth of gold was missing, causing threats of riots and chaos in America. Americans held waves of protests after they watched a video of 6,000 tons of gold disappearing from federal bank vaults. People are questioning where the gold is, and the American president is being called upon to address the ongoing chaos. The fake gold stored in the vaults was made of clay from a company purchased by the president on behalf of his chief of staff. This was made clear again through a photo of American officials who were witnessing the explosion of the church where Elena and Sergei had their wedding. The American president was also present at the venue and saw the horrific tragedy. This led Elena to plot revenge against them, including the American president, who became her final target. The president finally arrives at the federal bank and is greeted by Rogelio. The president pressured the FBI director to recover the original gold. However, Rogelio began to get suspicious because Val had provided information about the president's possible involvement in the disappearance of the gold. Jonathan tries to get the president's attention, hoping to get the post of FBI director if he manages to find the gold, while Rogelio is worried that he will be fired. Elena promised to indict and put the American president in jail. When asked about the next puzzle, Elena sends Val to meet Jacob, the vlogger, who will tell her about a very important matryoshka, or Russian nesting doll. Suddenly, Agent Max and a team from the Secret Service take over the FBI base. Val is kicked out, while Elena is given a hood. As Val and Antoni head to Jacob's house, there is a massive explosion at the man's house. Agent Max prepares some medicine and a syringe for Elena. At the prison, Owen and Sergei are seen working on thousands of buttons made of gold-colored platinum. They talk about the truck that will be coming to the prison tomorrow. This truck is what they will use to escape from prison. Meanwhile, Jacob's body is found inside his house. Was the president involved in the death of this vlogger? Val can't get any clues from the destroyed home. However, Val sees Jacob's car covered in stickers. Meanwhile, Jonathan finds clues from the CCTV camera about the disappearance of gold during a power outage due to flooding. The real gold has been moved through the subway line. The president immediately interrogated Elena. Elena accused President Wright of being Balak's puppet, and according to her, Balak had stolen the 6,000 tons of gold. However, what concerned the president was not the uproar and global crisis caused by the missing gold, but a Matryoshka toy doll containing evidence of the president and Lady Belox's conspiracy. If Elena had told him, the president would have promised Elena and her daughter a life of freedom. However, Elena refused, so the president injected sodium pentothal to make Elena tell the truth. From the sticker on Jacob's car, Val and Antoni came to the house of a woman who kept Jacob's things to look for clues about Lady Belox. The president is surprised that Elena can untie the knot to strangle him. Elena gets a second injection to make her talk, because one injection is not enough to make her talk. On the spot, Val finds clues about Stephanie's husband dying in a car accident. In fact, at that time, Stephanie was favored in the presidential election against President Wright. Her driver, Reyes, admits he was forced to turn the wheel because he saw a deer approaching them. For the next step, they went to Reyes' garage. Their arrival almost caused Reyes to run away, but Antoni managed to prevent it. At this moment, Reyes said that the car accident had been arranged by Lady Belox so that Stephanie would withdraw her candidacy and Wright would qualify to become President of America. Reyes also reveals that a Matryoshka doll contains a flash drive and is stored in a safe deposit box. It is the doll that Val must find as soon as possible before President Wright finds the doll. As it turns out, Elena stole the doll. Elena stole it from Natalia's or Lady Belox's hands. Although it could have killed her, the president didn't care. He chose to inject a third needle into Elena to get her to talk about where the doll was hidden. Finally, Elena confessed to keeping the doll in a safe in her daughter's name at the Republic of New York Bank, which her men still control. President Wright assigned Agent Max to get the doll and remove Elena, who was imprisoned. Owen and Sergei watch as 4 trucks arrive to pull thousands of buttons the inmates produce. Sergei calls the truck marked with a blue ribbon for Elena. Sergei says the buttons are worth billions of dollars. Does that mean these buttons are gold stolen from a federal bank? At the same time, Jonathan discovers evidence that Amira's eye sensors have been cloned with Agent Max's eyes. Max has come to ask the FBI deputy director to seize the Republic Bank from Elena's cable. This is where Jonathan begins to realize that the president and the Secret Service are indicated to be committing crimes. Elena's private army still controls the Republic Bank and the Windsor Bank. While the Secret Service focuses on the Republic Bank, Val prefers the Windsor Bank. Jonathan and the Special Forces team managed to take control of the Republic Bank to get the doll, but it turned out that the safe was empty. Meanwhile, Val managed to get the plastic from the doll given by Elena's men at the Windsor Bank. Secretly, Owen sends a message from the cell phone he hid under the bench so as not to be caught by Sergei, because they failed to get what he wanted. Elena was buried alive, but she had stolen a flashlight from Agent Max's pocket. As it turned out, the plaque contained evidence of President Wright's conspiracy with Natalia. Wright asked Natalia to arrange a plan so that he would qualify for the presidency, and in return, Natalia would get 6,000 tons of gold in the Republic Bank vault. At this moment, they realized that their biggest enemy was not Elena, but Lady Belox and her people. Immediately, the president contacted Val after learning the file was in her hands. Val was threatened with the same fate as Elena, who ended up in the grave. However, Val was not afraid and threatened the evil president to resign. Otherwise, the video would be shared across social media platforms. Will Elena's life end in a coffin, or will Elena expose the evil plan of Belox, supported by the American president, to steal 6,000 tons of gold from the federal bank? The prison warden was a member of Belox. In front of the media, the president blamed Elena for losing the gold. Of course, Val and her team didn't believe it. On the other hand, they needed clarification about where Elena had been taken. The only clue Val could get was from Owen. Elena said her last plan was to steal the gold from his hands. Sergei and Owen are hiding in the truck carrying the gold buttons. Elena's team also searches for their boss's whereabouts via GPS signals, as the pin Elena uses has been fitted with a tracking device. During their visit to the prison, Val is surprised to find that the warden suddenly goes into lockdown after 2 inmates escape. Elsewhere, Elena's team immediately digs up the ground where Elena is buried alive. When she saw the CCTV footage, Val realized that it was not only Owen who had escaped, but also Sergei, who she knew was dead. Val feels that Elena has lied to her, and now they know that the buttons are melted gold bars. Finally, Elena manages to survive and complete all her plans. After getting a chain message stating Elena is still alive, the president assigns Jonathan to catch Elena again. He will use Sofia to lure Elena into surrendering. Val and Antoni move after the trucks carrying the gold button after getting information on their escape route from the team sent by Rogelio. Natalia's men are seen removing the stickers covering the trucks. The patrol team almost caught Sergei and Owen. Meanwhile, Jonathan and his team are raiding a house to get Sofia. However, they had already escaped through a secret passage. Elena immediately took her daughter away from the location and took her to their hiding place. In the car, because the gold weighs thousands of tons, Val is sure Bellocs will take the gold away using containers at the port. Of the 4 gold trucks, it turns out that Sergei and Owen plan to steal 1 truck for them to take away. Meanwhile, having failed to get Sofia, the president assigns Jonathan to snatch the flash disk from Val's hands at any cost. When she receives a report that Elena's team has taken away 1 gold truck, Natalia immediately assigns her men to bring 3 other trucks to the dock. When they arrive at the location, Val and Antoni are confronted by Bellocs members, who put up a fight when they are forced to surrender. Finally, their mission to recover the 3 gold trucks was successful. One of the perpetrators was a CIA agent who was posing as a member of Bellocs. Rogelio told Val after getting this information from the CIA director. Not only that, but surprisingly, Owen had been working with the CIA to investigate this case. This last box truck was on its way to the airport. However, Owen's cover since Argentina had been discovered by Sergei and Elena, so Owen was held at gunpoint by Sergei. Meanwhile, when he arrived at his official residence, the president was surprised that Natalia was waiting for him. Natalia had no trouble getting past the president's bodyguards because they were more loyal to Natalia than the president himself. Here, Natalia was furious that she failed to get the gold. Especially since the president could not remove the president's form of punishment, Natalia stabbed the president. Owen is forced out of the truck, and Val suddenly appears to arrest Sergei. However, soon after, Elena and her men arrived as well. This time, Val is outnumbered, so they have no choice but to release Elena and her husband, taking a truckload of gold as their rations. When Val and Owen return to the office, they run into Jonathan. At this moment, Jonathan secretly installs a flash drive containing a virus to destroy the FBI headquarters' IT system. It is at this moment that Val expresses her disappointment in Owen, even though the man is doing such a disguise for the CIA. At the same time, Elena and Sergei did not expect to be ambushed by Bellocs' group. Then Natalia came to ask for her gold back. Rogelio finally gets the flash drive from one of his assistants. From here, they know that Jonathan has been betrayed too far. Elsewhere, Elena and her family cannot fight Natalia and her men. As it turns out, Elena and Natalia's feud is based on the murder of Natalia's sister and father. The women and men killed by Elena were Natalia's family. At this moment, they take Sofia and Elena, while Sergei dies in a car that is blown up. At the FBI headquarters, Val expresses her disappointment to Owen for not telling her about her undercover mission for the CIA. Although Elena is called a professional criminal, Val can feel their closeness and friendship. As Val looks at Elena's dress, she sees that underneath the dress is a map. It turns out that there are still many Matryoshka dolls where evidence of other high-profile crimes is stored. Suddenly, Elena calls Val for help, and the movie ends.